You seen this next guy?
Bloodborne.
Please welcome
John Dark Souls.
I want to talk about
Blood.
Have you heard that
Blood.
song? The guy from
Yarnam.
He has that song about
Blood.
No. He's like
Blood hunters, blood hunter, blood.
All right, no time for intros. This is a follow-up to my previous Bloodborne review. If you haven't seen it, don't watch it. It kind of stinks. But I'm here today to go back over my thoughts about Bloodborne, and it's for a very good reason. Thing is, I play the Souls games a lot. Elden Ring, Dark Souls, whatever. I beat them all about 50 to 100 times each. But with Bloodborne, I've only played that, I'd say, around about 10, 12 times, and what happened recently on my very rare Bloodborne playthrough, every time I go back and play this game, I just seem to enjoy it, just like a little bit more, every time. And my last Bloodborne playthrough, seriously, was maybe one of the most fun Souls playthroughs I've had in a very, very long time. So I want to go back over my thoughts and feelings about this game. Some opinions might stay the same, some I can just elaborate further, and then some might just change for the better. I'm happy I could be open to kind of some of you guys' feedback and playing it for myself and appreciating different parts, which I didn't before. I really like this game, and in this video I'm purposefully going to play devil's advocate just to make some points which I also feel like you also should be open to thinking about, and just, you know, I'm not trying to change your mind, I'm just trying to make you think, you know, it's kind of fun. Anyway, enough of that. Time to get into the shittest thing about the game. Hey guys, didn't expect this game to be a bit scary. Like, who's this fucking spooky guy on the front cover of this fucking game? He looks well fucking spooky. Who's this geezer? Okay. I'm going to start off right away with my main problem about this game, and this is a surprising one to most because the world and the setting of Bloodborne is the main attraction for a lot of you out there. In short, I don't like Bloodborne's setting because I'm not really into the spooky, gothic, eldritch stuff. It's never really spoke to me, and it's very clearly for a very certain audience, and that audience, unfortunately, is not me, and what's worth mentioning, probably not for a lot more people than you may think. Yeah, I fucking love what you're looking at, you scruffy fucking bellend. That's not Tesco's, you fucking dickhead. Fuck off. But as I've played a bit more, that opinion of it has changed quite a bit. And firstly is that I love to do that little joke about, oh, blood, nightmare, nightmare, blood, blood, blood. And my problem was before is that if you don't like just a shred of that kind of over-the-top, edgy blood setting, there's kind of no escape from it. What do you mean by my blood nightmare stuff? I kind of, maybe it's a little bit of an overcompensation, but there is a lot of blood. Like, look, like, I'm using a weapon to imbue it with blood. I use my healing item made of blood. My body is now covered in blood. I collect blood echoes, which go to my blood level. But now, I do kind of want to add something else, is that the variety within that setting. Even though I did say I didn't really like it, there's no escape from it. At least the game kind of changes it up enough to keep it fresh. For example, yes, we do have Blood Nightmare, blood, 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 blood. But we have Blood Nightmare in the city, Blood Nightmare in the forest, Blood Nightmare in the nightmare, funnily enough. But you can see my point. That it has its theme, but it takes it to a lot of different places. And that really helps me out. It's a good gag! It's a good gag! Shut up, guys! Guys, it's a good gag! And speaking of Blood Nightmare, Nightmare Blood, I got a lot of comments from people saying, hey, well, how can you say that when all Dark Souls is Souls of the Lords of Souls? And yeah, I agree. Dark Souls is that. Every single Souls story is incredibly one beat. Dark Souls is Lords of the Souls, Souls Lords. Elden Ring is Runes of the Great Tree, Runes of Runes. Sekiro is Dragons Immortal, Immortal, Dragon, Dragon. The difference is, guys, I like that. I'm sorry, I really am running out of different ways to kind of say that. Unfortunately, I just don't think it's cool. And that's how my opinion has changed. Because now, I can look at Bloodborne and say, you know what? Maybe you guys are right, fuck it. Let's say as a fact, this is a really cool setting. I mean, I can see the fucking thing. I can tell just by looking at it. It's really fucking cool. The game is just oozing with personality You can tell just by looking at the fucking thing. And I think that's the main difference with how I've learnt to like kind of appreciate this game's setting more, because before I just kind of dismissed it as cringe, but having kind of played a bit more, done some more of the side quests, such as this, I can actually look at it and just say, you know what, that is actually really cool. But the difference is, unfortunately, guys, I don't think it will ever go beyond just being cool for me. Jeez, man. I can look at this and say, man, this is really fucking deep. You can tell this is like really cool. And that's the impression I get. Look, I'm trying to make contact. It gives you like a little thing like that. It's so fucking cool. I can tell what I'm looking at's really cool. What's his backstory? I don't fucking know. I think in the actual story, like, they tried to make a god with all the scholars and stuff, and they made this. And they got pretty fucking close with this, apparently. That's the story. And again, if you're into eldritch horror, that's really fucking cool. Like, you make your own entity like that. But because I don't really care for, like, Lovecraft stuff, look, that guy's just gonna fuck him up. Look at that guy fucking just cutting his cock off. Okay, what I'm trying to say, look at this. It's really cool. But if you're not into Lovecraft, what is there left for you? Well, it's really cool, but that's it. It's not, oh my god, this is the cool. No, it's just cool. And that's what it is. It's really cool. And the difference is, guys, like, really, do you really feel like I want to feel like that? Because the way that Bloodborne fans describe this game is literally like a life-changing experience. They go fucking mad for this stuff, man. They go mad for it. Do you feel like I really don't want to get that? But I just can't, because I'm not into it like that. I don't care about Lovecraft. I just think it's cool. And it doesn't really go beyond that. And that's a shame. I think the best way I can wrap this all up is saying this. I enjoy Bloodborne's setting as much as I can without liking the setting. And it goes down to this. Like, Lenny, why do you just keep saying that? If it's not for you, just don't play it. Like, fucking whatever. Like, the problem is that Bloodborne's setting is just so bam, smack in your face all the time. You can't really look the other way. Bloodborne wears its setting so proudly on its chest, as it should. But all I'm trying to say is that if you're someone like me, or maybe like a lot of other people too, if you don't like just a shred of the over-the-top blood stuff, it's much harder to look the other way compared to most other games, because it's so damn proud of itself, as it should be. The niche audience it is very clearly going for loves it, but you gotta understand, as much that it doubles up the fans' enjoyment of it, equally on the other end, it doubles down everyone else's alienation and what the hell is, okay, whatever, it's cool, but the feelings of it. I don't know, I'm just kind of going around in circles here. As I said, I have a hard time appealing to those Bloodborne fans who do seem to kind of dismiss opinion, but I think it's important, I really do. Maybe it's as I said before, maybe that is the best way of describing it. I enjoy Bloodborne setting as much as I can without really being into it. And there's a lot more people out there than you may think who feel the same. So now we're over that, time to talk about another huge difference in Bloodborne, which I wasn't a big fan of at first, but now I actually really do like: the trick weapon system. So why do I have a whole section of this video dedicated to it? Is that I just don't think it's this huge, crazy, game-changing aspect that some people seem to say about it. In my previous video, I was saying stuff about, even though yes, you can change the weapons and transform them, really, most people just end up using the one form 90% of the time. For example, the Chicago Katana, loads of people just use it in blood form. The starting sword cleaver, everyone just keeps it untransformed forever. But I did have a lot of people saying in response to this, okay, no, sure, yeah, there might be a lot of people doing that, but me personally, I change forms all the time, which I agree with. Yeah, maybe I probably did also seem to forget there's also a lot of smart players out there who love constantly changing up the weapon to best suit the situations. So instead, I'm going to start again with this point and kind of come at it at a different angle. Hopefully you guys can maybe see where I'm coming from this time. Right, I want you to imagine Bloodborne and Dark Souls. In Bloodborne, when you want to change your form from the sword to the hammer, you can just press L1 and switch up on the fly like that. But in Dark Souls, you don't have the trick weapons. If you want to change things up, you gotta go into the menus and maybe put like a sword on slot 1 and a hammer on slot 2. Now, think about this one. If I wanted to change from a sword to a hammer in Dark Souls, technically, I am doing the exact same interaction. Physically, I am pressing one single button on my controller. In Bloodborne's case, I'm pressing L1. In Dark Souls' case, I'm pressing right on the D-pad. And I switched from a sword to a hammer. Technically, the exact same interaction happened in both of those games. I pressed one button and got a new weapon. So when talking about trick weapons, we gotta backwards engineer from this point, because if there's no difference, what's the point? So the elephant in the room here, weapon switching in Bloodborne lets you attack mid-combo. If you would like to switch weapons mid-combo, you can, and you get a sweet extra hit for it. This attack actually is so good, in fact, that some people constantly spam the weapon switch attack because it deals the most damage on some weapons. For example, the starting sword cleaver. So yeah, that's a good reason for weapon switching to exist, right? Well, for me, maybe not, because when you just spam the weapon switch attack for its damage, you are not weapon switching for the sakes of switching your weapon. You are weapon switching to do damage. It's almost as if it's an extra, like R3 button, or like a weapon art. You are not switching weapons to switch the weapon. You're using it for a completely different reason. So no, for me, people who just spam the weapon switch for its damage, that doesn't really give me a reason to switch weapons, because you don't really care about switching weapons. It's almost as if it's completely insubsequential. It's like a byproduct of just doing this extra like weapon art. Okay, so forget about that. What about just normal, moderate use? Every now and then, I might just feel like switching up the weapon, like for a minute or so, maybe mid-combo for that extra bit of damage. And okay, yeah, that's really cool. But something to be very careful of here is you gotta think, really think here. If you feel like switching up your weapon, how much of that actually happens in combat? Because I asked this to my audience, and they said to me, well, actually, when I think about it, I might see a big guy like in the city and say, oh, I need my big hammer for this, and switch before the combat starts. I like the idea too, Tio, how we have the big hammer for the big enemies you did stagger, and the little quick sword for the quick dispatch. I like that. But the switching, mainly 95% of the time, it'll happen now, before the combat starts. You see an enemy, I'm like, oh, I need my big weapon. Do you see what I'm saying? It's still cool, but most of it happens outside of combat, like right now. The reason why it's really important to illustrate switching inside or outside of combat. If you're switching outside of combat, well, then we go back to our Dark Souls example of, well, technically you're doing the same thing at that point. There's no danger. You can just switch. The extra attack doesn't matter. If it's pre-combat, it does nothing. But with all that being said, I can't deny in those certain situations where I absolutely must switch weapons right now, no possible pre or post combat breaks, I have to switch now. It is really satisfying to do it mid combo and get that extra bit of damage. But at least with me and with the people I asked, again, those situations are just so few and far in between. It gives more beast meter when beast blood palette. Well, okay, that's a good point. If you're the 1% of person out there who switches weapons to build up your beast pellet meter more, fair play. Fair fucking play. If you want to build up your beast pellet meter, you got me. Which is fair enough. That is a reason, but what? Okay. It's like so it sounds like I actually don't like trick weapon switching, but no, I actually really do like it. It's for two fantastic reasons. One, you get 2 weapons upgraded for the price of 1 Titanite, and 2, it looks really cool. And that's an absolutely fantastic reason for it to exist. But all I'm trying to say here is this whole weapon switching thing with the mid-combat applications, it just doesn't quite sit right with me. The vast majority of the decision making to switch or not happens like pre-combat. Like when you see a big guy and like, okay, I gotta get the big weapon out. So at that point, it may as well just be pressing right on the D-pad to get out your big weapon. Look, leave combat, switch safely, full stamina, I can go again. Now let's do it again by switching in combat. I have the sword. I'm not staggering him. Shit. Okay, change weapon. In combat, change weapon in combat. Oh, fuck. Look how clumsy it is. I'm like half stamina. Just leave combat, change weapon, and go in nice and safely. Why would you do it in combat? Having said all this, I gotta be honest, I only really believe in about half of it. Because really all it takes to debunk all of this is for one person in the comments to say, hey, well, no, like actually when I play, I switch combat styles in combat all the time when I play. And that's fair enough. I can't really argue with that. If anything, this whole section's really been about, it's just to make you really think here, like, come on now. You can at least maybe see that thematically, pressing the one button to switch weapons, pre-combat in most cases, isn't anything that new. If anything here, the question should be, if that's the case, why don't we see it in Dark Souls more often? And honestly, that's just a carry weight. If you don't know, Bloodborne doesn't have carry weight. And if we didn't have carry weight in Souls either, we probably would see a lot more weapon switching as we do in Bloodborne. Actually, when I think about it, this whole section actually just comes down to the fact of, does your game have carry weight or not? Oh, fuck it. So the last two sections here have been kind of parts of me which have kind of stayed the same but changed a little too. But now I want to get into stuff which I've really changed my mind about, and it's quite a few things. And firstly, it's the Chalice dungeons. I really like the Chalice dungeons. I feel like they get a bad rap. If you don't know, Chalice dungeons are these little pieces of side content accessed from the hub in which you can go into pre-made or randomly made mini dungeons and fight some cool bosses and get some really good loot. So the enemies here, you actually get some Chalice exclusive enemies and bosses, like enemies you can't find anywhere else. And at first, like myself and maybe some of you guys would say, oh well, that's a shame, I'd like them to put those enemies into the normal world. But now I really do feel like it's worth keeping those exclusive, because it's just really cool to come here and get a totally fresh, like, whoa, what is that experience? I mean, look at this guy, for God's sake. Look at this. He's like a big naked guy with a big hammer. And he's like rolling about. It's worth seeing these guys. I'm going to hit this guy. And oh, look, you can see his bum. Look at that roll. He's like, look at that. It's really fun. And you do want to come here and see these enemies, you know? Secondly, the rewards. You can get a lot of unique things here, but in my opinion, I want to talk about the gem rewards. Gems are these little things you can put onto your weapons and they can change the scaling, they can add flat damage, they can give you certain buffs, etc. Now, the gems in the Chalice dungeons are very, very good. Like, game-breakingly OP good. You can get some amazing gems super early that 100% outshine what you'd get in the normal late game. But the reason why I don't mind it being like game-breakingly OP is that, yeah, these are very, very powerful, but it's not like you need them. Like, a lot of players, probably yourself included, can get by just fine without these, that you don't need them to beat the game. You probably feel quite powerful enough to beat the game without these anyway. On this playthrough, like my 12th, it's the first time I ever actually farmed these and got these really cool gems. And fuck me, it is the most powerful I've ever felt in Bloodborne. Like, this shit fucking rocks. Like, by all accounts, you don't need it, but it's still there if you want to go bananas with it. I love the Chalice dungeons being this optional thing which you can go into, get some really cool shit and fight some new enemies. It can only be a positive to me. I like that a lot. But having said all that, it still does seem in like most people's normal gameplay, a lot of people still do seem to overlook the Chalice dungeons here and just like don't interact with them. I know I didn't for like my first 8 playthroughs, and I think there's a very good reason why. A lot of these dungeons have a cost entry requirement. To even get in to the dungeons, you need to pay these random ass currencies like blood 5, 2 mold 5, like whatever. And a lot of people would just rather not go on a fucking treasure hunt for all this shit. So for me, if these cost entries were not here, we probably would see a lot more people using and enjoying the Chalice dungeons. It's a big shame because I really like it and I think everyone should see it at least once. But at the same time, can you be arsed playing fucking treasure hunt with this shit? Okay, last section, and I want to quick fire off a bunch of things I've changed my mind about or things that I now love. So, Bloodborne DLC. It's very, very good. Now, usually I don't like talking about DLC in my reviews because, believe it or not, there's a lot more people who have not played any Souls DLC. This can be either because they can't afford it or that they only have ever done the one playthrough of each game. And when they're told, oh my god, you should totally go back and do the super, super hard fucking content, they're like, no, man, I struggled enough on my one playthrough. Like, I don't want to go back and like get my ass kicked again. So no, like a lot of people don't actually play DLC, and that's fine. But I just can't overlook Bloodborne's DLC because it's absolutely banging. Like, it reaffirms all of my now positives about this game, cranks up the combat impossibly higher, and the way they've done it, I think at least, it's not just a fight, is it? It's everything. The atmosphere, the designs, the fucking hell, the music here. I mean, it's the best track in all of Souls, isn't it? Fucking personnel, fuck boy. As I said before, the setting here is something I don't like, but again, the DLC takes it to places which I absolutely love. Look, it's actually fucking daytime. I like that a lot. It's really cool. And again, even though I don't like the Eldritch shit, the fishing hamlet it's just fucking cool though, isn't it? This all accumulates in the Orphan of Kos, and I don't know if this is just me, having played the other Souls games like hundreds of times, and Bloodborne only about 10 times, but Orphan of Kos, to me, is still one of the hardest Souls bosses, like still, of all time. I don't know, maybe people who have played Bloodborne a lot, like themselves, can tell me in the comments if they feel like it's different, but I just find it amazing about how most of these old bosses from older games, like Dark Souls 1, they've kind of fallen off. Especially when Elden Ring has these new bosses and new movesets. It kind of makes the old games seem a bit easy. But no, Orphan of Kos still stands up after all this time in a timeless level of difficulty. And that's really, really good to see. As I said, I don't want to spend too much time on DLC, but now I really want to readdress the parrying because I have changed my mind about this. I really quite like it now. Previously, I said I think it kind of sucks that the parry hitbox is the actual bullet, meaning that you can actually time your L2 parry press perfectly by all accounts, but the bullet can simply just miss by like clipping through a piece of clothing or whatever. And I do still feel like that kind of sucks, but I also feel like now it's outweighed by something much more important, and it's that now your parry has range. I want to take this for example. Now, parrying is all about baiting out that one attack that you know how to punish. If you try and parry everything you see, you're probably going to get your wiener blown off. But it's all about baiting and seeing that one attack that you know and you know how to punish it. And it's a really cool feeling. But now, since the parry is based on the projectile, you can get that punish from so many more positions. Like here, for example, I'm just standing back and I'm waiting for that one attack that I know, and there it is, boom, parry from a good distance. I can rush in and get the punish. Now, that might seem cheap, but I think it's great because it has gone back and doubled down on that parrying philosophy. You have seen that one attack that you know, that one punish, and now, as long as you can see the fucker, you can punish it. You don't have to be up close. You can, as long as you see it, you can get it. And that to me is the correct kind of philosophy around parrying. So yeah, after thinking about it from that way, I do very much feel like it's worth it, having that kind of weird projectile kind of hitbox gimmick. Alright, he's just spamming me with dumb shit now, come on. Stop spamming me, come on, man. Oh, no way that hits. Do you want to play fucking Bloodborne, or do you want to do this shit all day? Do you want to play Bloodborne, or do you want to do this shit all day, mate? What do you want to do? Do you want... Oh my God, we are not playing Bloodborne right now. We're playing fucking Projectile Simulator. Fuck this. Do you want to play Blood... Oh, the parry didn't fucking work, you piece of shit game. Do you want to play Bloodborne or what, mate? Thank you. Let's play Bloodborne. Let's play fucking Bloodborne for a sec. Does the parry wanna fucking work? I swear. You know what? I've changed my mind. This game's actually fucking pretty sick when you think about it. This game's fucking awesome. This game rocks my fucking cock off. How do I play this Bloodborne game? Okay, so we're at the conclusion here, and I'm not going to keep the Bloodborne fans waiting, because they love this shit, man. When someone's trashed the game before, and then they come around to liking it, they seriously get off to that shit, man. So here, plain and simple, do I like this game now? Yes, I do. Bloodborne is a very, very fucking good game. And then, was I wrong about Bloodborne? You know what, yeah, I probably am. Given the amount of circumstances stacked against me, I think it's probably easier to say that this is just flat out one of the best Souls experiences, or even gaming experiences, of all time. But here's the problem. Do I want to play Bloodborne? No, not really. It's no mistake why I've only played this one 10 times. Because when I think about Dark Souls, I get excited. I'm like, oh my god, I get to kill a little fucking goblin. That sounds sick. And I think of Bloodborne, I'm like, I get to kill the blood nightmare. Like, oh, fuck it. Can't be arsed. Doesn't really speak to me. Plot twist, he hates it. I had the potential to do the funniest fucking thing ever, but I just get to the conclusion of the video and say, you know what? It's still shit. But I just can't, man. Like, I really do feel like you're gonna be really into that edgy blood nightmare eldritch stuff. Like, it's almost to me a hard requirement for being absolutely enamored by this game, like so many have been. And really, at this point, I now feel like that's a shame that I don't get it. As I said before, I really have a hard time trying to appeal to the hardcore Bloodborne fans here, because they talk about it as if you're just a flat out fucking idiot for not liking this or understanding, implying that if I actually did understand it, I'd have no choice but to like it. I don't really have any interest in getting it because it's not for me, and that's where unfortunately the line is drawn. So, was I wrong about Bloodborne? Yeah, I was. If you really wanted to kind of go there, you can consider this as a fact to be the best depiction of eldritch horror in a video game, as a fact. And at the end of the day, I've kind of changed around to thinking, you know what, actually, yeah, this is really cool. But then it's a shame it doesn't go beyond that. I don't know, maybe I said it the best as I said before. I really do enjoy Bloodborne as much as I possibly can without being into it.
Dear, oh dear. What was it? The hunt? The blood? Or the horrible dream?